Okay, well, welcome everyone. I will call to order our regular bi-monthly meeting of the Board of Directors of MMWD beginning at, I think it's 5:03 on March 7, 2023. We could have a roll call vote, Terry?
Yes, good evening. Vice President Cush,
Here.
Director Larry Russell, Director Matt Sampson,
Here.
Director Jed Smith,
Here.
and President Monty Schmidt.
Here.
And President Schmidt, do you want to let the legislative body or the board know that you're attending virtually pursuant to our new rules under the Brown Act 54953?
Yes, I'd be happy to, Molly. Pursuant to the Brown Act rules that Molly just referenced, I'm not attending in person as I'm still recovering from COVID. And so out of respect for my fellow board members and the public, I'm still in a quarantine period and therefore attending and participating via Zoom.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the Brown Act rules do also require you to let us know if there's a person who's over 18 in the room with you at this time.
There is not.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, well, good to see you, Monty. Glad you're feeling okay. I think the next item is a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Great. And I don't think we need to do an approval, but we move then to
Well, if we have, I don't know if we have public comment, and then we should take a roll call vote because we have a virtual board member.
okay.
We do have a public comment only on the closed session item.
Okay, then we can proceed to roll call vote on the agenda if there's a first and a second.
Yes, I believe it was proposed motion by Director Smith and seconded by Director Sampson. Good. So Vice President Cush,
Aye.
Director Russell, Director Sampson,
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
and President Schmidt.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. In the board comments, we do have one public speaker. His name is Josh Hanna. If you want to come to the podium, sir. I'm having a little technical difficulties with the timer here. It's not starting, but I have my trusty phone. So go ahead, sir.
Can you hear me okay?
Go ahead.
Oh, just hold it down?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, board members and staff. I appreciate you hearing my words here. My name is Josh Hanna. I'm an officer and secretary to the West Point Inn Association Board and a resident in Mill Valley and a MMWD ratepayer. And as such, I personally I'll just speak up. Can you guys hear me?
Speak up loud. Sorry.
That's fine. terms in terms of making it so something. we
Time's
can go
up, sir.
forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hannah. I have no further speakers.
Yes, we do. Did we have a?
Yeah,
Sure.
just a quick announcement. I'm going to have to recuse myself from the discussion of the West Point Inn contract and situation because I am a member. I'm a life member, proud member. Am I allowed to say that? I had my 40th birthday up there. I had my second annual 40th birthday party up there and my third annual 40th birthday party. I've had a lot of 40th birthday parties. It's a great place, special place on the hill, and MMWD is lucky to have you guys.
So we do have a separate room for our closed session. It's the Mount Tam room. So we'll see everybody there just a couple minutes.
Okay, so closed session was adjourned with no reportable actions. And Molly, I believe we want to just inform everyone that item number 4 on the agenda is going to be postponed to a later date.
That's correct, Vice President Kush. We are going to pick that one up at another time. And actually, we're going to go back to closed session after the regular meeting to pick up item number 3. So that's where we are in the agenda. Thank you.
And now I believe we move to public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Is that right?
That is correct. We have several speakers. First, I'm going to go with the public comment for in-person meetings, and then I'm going to go to the public comments in our attendance in Zoom. So the first person to speak is Mr. Phil Sauter.
Good evening. My name is Phil Sauter. I'm from Woodacre, and I've been infesting most of these board meetings for the past 6 months when we've been discussing 3 issues that have been of interest: water supply, conservation, and rates, all of which I believe are interrelated. During this time, we've also had a significant turnover in board members. And during this time, at every meeting and without a pause, I felt that my input as a member of the public has been heard and considered. My background is in the private sector, and I can't imagine how I would have done my job with members of the public showing up at my desk, asking me what I was doing and suggesting areas for improvement. I'm not sure I would have handled it well. And yet when I showed up at an early meeting with serious knowledge gaps, Ben was kind enough to offer to bring me up to speed and made himself and Paul available to do so. Paul and Carrie both provided information I was looking for. And when it led me to conclude that rate tiers needed adjusting, I came to a meeting that night and found that Brett was all over it. And Terry has been incredible in facilitating public participation in person, via Zoom, and tonight in a hybrid environment. There are many staff members who have been similarly helpful. Over the years, I've met with our established board members, and recently, along with other groups, I've met with 2 of the 3 new board members. And I can say that the confidence and respect they have for staff is quite high. Yet both board members and staff not only allow for, but encourage members of the public to weigh in with all their various information and opinions. So I wanted to show up tonight in person and express my appreciation to staff and the board for this ongoing environment for members of the public to be heard. It makes a real difference. Thank you.
Thank you. The next 2 speakers, Mary Jane Schramm and Clayton Smith. Let me pause this for a minute. And then go ahead, Miss Mary Jane Schramm.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Mary Jane Schramm, and I live, work, and recreate in Marin County. Thank you for this chance to provide input on the recreation plan. First, the MMWD mission statement is clear, quote, "It is to manage our natural resources in a sustainable manner and to provide our customers with reliable, high-quality water at a reasonable price," end quote. Therefore, the biological richness and diversity of these natural resources demand that any recreation plan must have an environmental impact report. Given the known and unknown impacts of human activities on this area's wildlife and plant species, the EIR must consider the watershed's current status along with emerging and ongoing impacts, such as wildfire mitigation measures that are already altering habitats. All these activities need to be considered and coordinated, with any outcome for the plan weighted in favor of mission statement priorities, that is, sustainable natural resource management. Recreation is not listed as a mission statement goal, but it can be a tool for building conservation awareness, stewardship, and advocacy. To that end, visitors should be able to enjoy safe, stress-free, mutually compatible experiences. Motorized transport, therefore, should be restricted to suitable areas only. If conservation and recreation activities conflict, then recreation must defer to conservation. The harm or even disappearance of native species, the trampling or off-path use represents a tragic, possibly permanent loss, whereas recreational opportunities in less sensitive areas abound. Finally, recreational users of the watershed are enjoying a privilege. If they engage in illegal, disruptive, or unsafe behavior, they must be held accountable through active enforcement. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate your setting aside this public comment period.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Clayton Smith.
At the most recent get-together of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Al Gore hyperventilated about boiling oceans and rain bombs. The rain bombs caught my attention. I wondered if he was letting out a tell about what's going on with all this climate hysteria, begging the question how much of it is simply an artifact of geoengineering. Those familiar with the weaponization of weather during the war in Vietnam will recognize rain bombs from what was called Operation Popeye, a program that used weather modification technology to create literal rain bombs by lifting water out of the adjacent sea and dumping it on the Ho Chi Minh Trail to interdict the flow of supplies to the Viet Cong and the NVA. I suspect that this is what we are having recently, at least the last 2 winters, rain bombs. The rain is certainly welcome given the drought conditions we have suffered through. However, it comes at a potential risk or cost to our health. A growing number of people have been watching the mass aerosoling of the atmosphere above the Bay Area, and those paying attention have noted how it so often precedes precipitation. However, it begs the question, what chemicals are in these aerosols and could they be harmful to our health? This is the focus of the Clean Atmosphere Act now being promoted in Sacramento. To the extent that this is the cause of all this precipitation, it would be of great benefit to our community to have advance notice from those responsible, most likely DARPA. These issues are going mainstream, and I hope you become more conscious of these. In the meantime, with regard to the Clean Atmosphere Act, you could do some sampling in your reservoirs to see what might be coming out of the sky with all this possibly engineered rain and all the water that you're storing there as a consequence of it. It also provides a clear additional support for the need to increase our local storage. We have just watched perhaps years of water supply going right out to sea. And if the forecasts are hold true, more is on the way. I don't think as a consequence, we need to resort to having to have toilet to tap, recapturing our wastewater we don't need to resort to that if what I'm observing is actually happening. We should be able to provide plenty of water in our reservoirs going forward. Thank you.
Next speaker is 1402, please.
James Holmes, Larkspur. Good evening. I hope that all board members and senior staff saw and read the recent articles in both the San Francisco Chronicle and Marin IJ about Governor Newsom's directive to the State Water Board to consider reducing releases for fish so that more water can be retained in storage for people's use. If you didn't get those articles, I would be happy to provide the clerk copies for distribution. But just quoting briefly from the Chronicle article, Governor Gavin Newsom on Monday suspended environmental laws to give the go-ahead to state officials to hold more water in reservoirs. Newsom's order says, quote, to ensure adequate water supplies for purposes of health, safety, the environment, or drought-resilient water supplies, the Water Board shall consider modifying requirements for reservoir releases or diversion limitations in Central Valley Project or State Water Project facilities. His order adds, and this is important, these are the citations, the laws that are being suspended, to enable those actions, two state laws, Water Code Section 13247, which requires state agencies to comply with all water quality rules, and Public Resources Code Division 13, which ensures environmental quality, and its regulations are suspended, unquote. This directive by the governor applies alike to our situation. We should use this precedent to forcefully contend for the same rights that the governor recognized for water project recipients. It is unacceptable that the primary potential obstacle to more on-site local storage should not be economic or technological or engineering, but a 1995 Water Board straitjacket directive. I urge the board to direct staff to immediately contact the State Water Board and begin the process of in a dialogue that will invoke this precedent to protect our ability to have water storage, increased water storage as part of our increased water resilience process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I do not have any further speakers.
Okay, thank you. And that brings up our next agenda item, which are directors and general managers announcements. Start with directors. Ben?
Sure, I have a comment.
Yeah. Jed.
So report out from our Finance and Administration Committee meeting on Thursday, February 23rd. It was a great meeting, and Brett, appreciate your leadership, and Vicky joining us for at least my first time that I've seen her join. So staff provided an update on staffing and discussing specifically the current open positions in the district and our timing for filling those budgeted positions, upcoming plans for development of an internal employee survey and to supplement one that was done in 2016. Staff reported also on the district's current finances as of January 31st and provided a quarterly investment report as of December 30th. Staff also provided a rate setting process update focused on determining the revenue requirements and funding priorities to confirm the needs of the district's fixed expenditures and assessing alternative funding scenarios and related customer bill impacts. The directors provided feedback to the staff. The public may learn more of these presentations, as well as watch the meeting by visiting the district's website and the calendar for February 23rd at marinwater.org/calendar. Thank you.
Monty, I'll go to you next.
I have nothing to add this evening.
Thanks, Monty. Larry?
None.
Matt?
No, none for me as well. Thanks.
Okay, I'll just note that Larry and I both attended the North Bay Watershed Association meeting last Friday on March 3rd. And the majority of the meeting was dedicated to a presentation from a consultant with West and Yost, I believe. And it was focused on grant funding, grant procurement strategies for public agencies and with a focus on water. And I will share the presentation, Ben. Maybe you could pass it on to Matt Segas. It was, I think, there's probably a lot in there that he's well aware of, but some updates as well that could be useful. I just wanted to note a couple of highlights. One is related to federal water infrastructure funding. So through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, there is $55 billion available to upgrade water infrastructure and $50 billion that's directed toward water system resiliency. More recently, the Inflation Reduction Act provides $5.5 billion for flood mitigation and climate resiliency, and $550 million for planning, design, and construction of water projects for disadvantaged communities that do not have reliable water access. And then again, the last item is some state funding. So in the proposed 2023 budget, there is a line item for $6.8 billion for drought and local water supply projects. So I thought that was quite interesting information and hopefully can be useful for Matt. Okay, I think oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's often I don't. Tonight I do have a item I wanted to share with the board. Before I get there, I did want to note tonight's meeting is uniquely brief in that it's all consent items, no discussion or approval items. We strive to balance the meetings and not have some that go on forever and then others like tonight. In fact, I think it's the first time in the 4 years I've been here that that's happened. So I just wanted to note there were some late changes that resulted in this and we couldn't pivot as quickly as we would have liked. I wanted to share as my item that last year, Senator Ana Caballero authored Senate Bill 323, which created statute of limitations on water right challenges. The Association Aqua of California Water Agencies sponsored the bill and our board formally supported, and it was passed by the legislature and chaptered into law. This year, Senator Caballero is again teaming up with Aqua to introduce Senate Bill 23, which would streamline the regulatory permitting process for water supply and flood risk reduction projects. This bill, if successful, would help reduce costs and impediments for water supply solutions for the district. Given the timing, what we'd like to do is sign on to Aqua's initial coalition letter that would just have agencies listed, which would accompany the bill during initial hearings in Sacramento. We would then bring this to the full board for a formal vote of support and review of the bill in detail. And if the board supported that, that would allow us to communicate the board support to elected officials, the senator and others. So I just wanted to note that generally we do want to come to the board and have the board president sign these letters and have it reflect the organization. With this timing, we'd like to proceed with the coalition letter pending a more detailed review by the board. So it's not an agendized item. So I would just, if I hear concerns with that approach, I would act accordingly, but otherwise we would proceed along those lines. That's all I have tonight.
Ben, I think this is an interesting bill, which I have learned a little bit about, and not as much if I had known that this was going to be an item brought before the board. I think that there's a lot of concerns out in the conservation community about the bill in the ways that it might be suspending environmental review of projects and having, I think, unintended consequences on listed species and in other environmental benefits. So I think at this point in time, I'm not comfortable with Marin Water signing on to the letter of support until we understand and can look at the bill in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that that comment came. So I think it works fine to not be on Aqua's coalition. I don't think that would materially change anything. And we'll plan to bring this to the board and have a fuller discussion on it.
Sounds good.
So we have some time to make that decision. We don't have to do it tonight.
Right, so I'm pivoting and just suggesting we would not sign on to the coalition letter. So that would give us time and we'd bring the bill back in the language and a more staff presentation on the operative elements and allow the board to deliberate their support or not.
So the coalition letter decision would be only tonight. And if we don't do it tonight, we're not going to be in that
That's
coalition.
correct.
Got it.
Any other board comments? Nothing from me either. So I think with that, Ben, are we ready to move on? Thank you. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the approval of our consent calendar. I know, Molly, normally we go through the approval. Is there any reason to actually just note the items that are on the consent calendar? Or
We don't typically, we just, we have them on the agenda for the public to review, and we have staff reports in the package. If there's a question or concern, however, by one of the board members, there is the opportunity to pull that off of consent and then to ask questions and have discussion if there's an interest of any of the board members to do that. I want to make sure everybody knows that can happen. Otherwise, it's approved as a collective item typically.
Okay, thank you, Molly. So all of the items on the consent calendar are listed on our agenda. So just wanted to check with board members in case there are any questions or items they would like to discuss.
I'd like to make just one or two comments, if that's okay. One, I'd like to just acknowledge the fact that we're hiring for positions. So thank you very much for the team for doing that. And the second is, it's sobering again to see the increase in asphalt or repaving costs coming back to us in these numbers for a full approval. And I hope that we can start working towards a solution for that. So that was it.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then Terry, I think we can. Right. If we could have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Should I go ahead and ask for public comment before I do the vote?
If we have public comment, then we should allow public comment on the consent agenda. Otherwise, we can.
Okay, I just wanted to
Roll call.
double check. Okay, there are none. Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Sampson,
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
President Schmidt,
Aye.
and Vice President Kush.
Aye.
Okay,
Thanks, Terry. And the next item is our regular calendar. And I believe the main item here is our future meeting schedule and agenda items. Yes, thank you, Larry.
Okay, so just to inform the board, again, you'll have the Operations Committee meeting this Friday, March 10th at 9:30 in the morning. Then next week, on Tuesday, March 14th is the special board meeting. I believe it's focused on the rate setting process. That's at 5 p.m. Thursday, March 16th is the Watershed Committee meeting, which is at 1:30 p.m. And March 21st is our regular Board of Directors meeting, closed session at 5 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. open session. All of the meetings are in person or hybrid meetings. Then for our external meetings, March 17th is the Lagunitas Creek Technical Advisory Committee meeting. That's a Zoom meeting. It's at 9 a.m. Then Monday, March 27th, the North Bay Water Reuse Authority has a 9:30 a.m. meeting, and that's also on Zoom. And that's it.
Can we look to moving that closed session on the 21st to after instead of before?
Yes, we can look at that.
I'm not hung up on it. I mean, if that's the way it needs to be, that's fine. But I could say these 5 PM things are pretty tough.
What if we move them to a 5:30 start, Larry? Would that work better?
I don't see any reason not to put them after the meeting. Is there some reason that I'm not following?
Just I think of staff then needing to head home later in the evening.
Well, we could potentially look at closed sessions, and if they're, not going to be long, and look at the length of the meeting and just try and recognize fives early if we can, schedule it at 6, that sort of thing, if it works to put it at the end.
Well, I'm not exactly sure how the meetings got moved to 6:30. I don't recall that particular discussion. Maybe it happened, but
Yeah, we did.
okay.
Yeah.
I know there was discussion, but I didn't realize we actually voted on that. Okay. Because that would be the other solution, is to push the meetings back to the old time and then start that. If you want to do it before, you could do that, but not at 5 o'clock.
And I'm supportive of your recommendation to look at, if they're shorter, then start them a little bit later, 5:30 or 6. I definitely am cognizant of what you're saying, Larry. So I want to make sure you're there, and I want to be there also. So, we have kids, the rest of us, and the staff is here late. So we're balancing a lot, but I think we should try to make sure that you're there. And if there's a real specific conflict, then maybe let's just change it as it goes along when Terry.
Well, the only
gives a piece.
conflict is business continues.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Okay, with that, I think we will adjourn then our regular meeting of the Board of Directors.
We'll adjourn for now, and then we'll reconvene after our last closed session item, which is item number 3 on the closed session calendar. Thank you.
Okay, closed session was adjourned with no actionable items to report, only directions to staff. And with that, we adjourn the regular board members meeting for MMWD on March 7th, 2023. Oh,